Now, the second unit which we are going to discuss is about federalism. Before discussing about the unit, let us recall in the previous unit, what did we discuss about? So, we have discussed about the issues which happened in Belgium and in Sri Lanka. In Belgium, we have seen the three different language spoken people accommodating themselves and framing the constitution through the accommodation policy, where they have changed the existing constitution, amended it for 4 times nearly to get the equal representation and equal satisfaction for all the people, like for the Dutch spoken people, French spoken people, and even the German language spoken people also. Now, here we have seen the central government and the respective state governments have shared certain powers. So, let us remember here they have the division of powers at various levels of the government. Now, when we discuss about Sri Lanka, in Sri Lanka, what happened actually was, we all know that we have the system going on in Sri Lanka is the majoritarian. So, repeat, in Sri Lanka, we have the majoritarianism system of democracy, which means like in Sri Lanka, we have the Sinhala language spoken people accommodating nearly 74% of the population, and the Tamilians are nearly 18%. So, Sri Lanka has adopted the system of the opinion of the majority has to be taken as a priority basis, and they started to claim that Buddhism to be the state religion, and also giving special importance for the Sinhala community people, where the opportunities are being reserved for Sinhala community people. This has brought injustice for the Tamilians. In this way, here the leaders of the Sri Lankan constitution or the framers did not agree to have the division of the power. So, in the Belgium scene or in the Belgium scenario, we have the people accommodating themselves even though they don't belong to the same religion or the same language based. They even belong to 3 different language groups or communities. They have accepted each other's equal status and they have agreed for the division of the power, and here they did not agree, which led to a civil war. Now, the sharing of the power between the 2 levels of the governments is known as a federal setup. So, the word federal means an agreement. The word federal means an agreement. In this agreement, you have that should be a written agreement, and this word federal is being derived from the word called fideus. Fideus is a Latin word meaning an agreement, a mutual agreement. So, the mutual agreement between 2 governing bodies, it may be the state level, it may be at the local level, or it may be at the national level. So, the agreement between any 2 governments is known as a federal government, or any 2 exercising power bodies are known as federal setup. So, we generally have in most of the countries in the world the federal structure. So, the federal setup has certain features. First feature is that they need to have at least 2 levels of governments where we can share the power between themselves through a mutual concern and a written agreement, that is known as the federal setup. So, as we have established what is a prime phase of federalism, now the federalism is nothing but the sharing, or it would be appropriate to use the word called distribution of powers between the union and state levels of governments. Now, when we discuss about federalism, we are trying to establish what is the actual meaning of federalism. We have just now understood like it is derived from a Latin word meaning a mutual agreement, a written agreement between the two parties where the power has been distributed or shared between two levels of governments. Let us take in India, we have the sharing of power between union and the states. Then we may get a general doubt. How can the power be shared like this? Or what are the criteria to share the power between two levels of governments? Now let us take an example of India where India has a sharing of power, India has a federal structure set up in the government form. So now in the union, we as a union government looks after the subjects like the which are falling under the category of national interest. Let us take foreign policy of a nation. So the union government looks after towards the national interest, the subjects falling like foreign policy, then we have the defense, then we have the banking sector, then we move on to the currency of a nation. Now, when we discuss about the national interest subjects, like it is a whole and sole responsibility of the entire nation's interest at the cost of the administration. So, the union government takes the issues which are at the national interest to take care of them and to represent the nation in the international community to address the issues. So, all these things are managed and looked after by the union government or the central government. So then, what are the subjects that are dealt by the state governments? So when we discuss about the state governments, which are having the local importance, the subjects which are having the local importance of that particular state, let us take the subjects which are coming under the state's purview or the state's interest are, let us take the police department, which looks after all the issues of the police, like giving security for the personals, looking after security for the common man in that particular state. And then we can discuss about the forests, when we also can discuss about the issues which are concerned to the local concerns of that particular state. And we also can categorize them, the union subjects, we have the postal system, in the same way which are coming under the interest of the state. We also have the educational policies of the state, so these kind of issues will all be dealt with a mutual concern. And we also have to understand here that the union government does not have any power to order or initiate anything to happen by the state government, while these two are independent and they are not dependent on each other. The state government will not be getting any concern from the national government or the union government when they want to frame any laws on any of the state governing subjects, while the union government also do not have any power to ask the state governments to do this particular law or this particular action against a particular subject. It is purely under the control of the union government for the union subjects and the state government for the state subjects, and they also have that clear cut demarcation and the perfect division of the powers between each other. So it is very clear for us that the existence of the two levels of the government are not on the concern of each other, but framed by the constitutional setup. They always have clearly defined margins for them, the clear specification of the subjects which fall under the union list and under the state list, where the union government has been entrusted the powers to make laws on that particular subjects, while the state government has been given a certain subjects where we have the state government holding the complete authority to make the laws on that particular subjects. So there is no question of interference or ordering or any bossism by the union government or the state governments. So the federal setup is nothing but two independent government levels or two independent levels of bodies having the sharing of power with the mutual concern in a written format of agreement. So this is the actual framing of the word federalism and the existing structure in the democratic setup around the world. So now let us try to establish some of the key factors of federalism. What are the key factors? As you all know, key factors means the basic features. As constitution has certain basic structure or basic features, in the same way, in order to claim or analyze that in this country's government setup, we have the federal structure, we need to look after the issues which are basically required to have a federal structure there. First of all, how many features do we need to have here? First of all, we have 7 features. How many? 7 features are there which are basic requirements to claim that there is a federal structure in that particular nation or a state region. Now, there should be at least 2 or more than 2 levels of the governments. So, the government has to share its powers with the other respective government. How can it share a power with the other respective government? As we discussed earlier, the sharing of the power will be done between the union or central and state, provincial or local governments. So this structure can also be union, state and local. So it can be 2-level government or it can be 3-level government. As in India, we now have 3-tier level of governments. So the first level of government, the union government, the second level of government, the respective states governments, third set of government is the Panchayat Raj setup structure, that is local governments or the municipal governments. So now the first basic feature to have federalism means there should be 2 or more than 2 set of governments. Then we can have the sharing through the mutual concern. A written agreement should be there, and next basic feature is that the same citizens, the 2 levels of government are existing for the same national individuals. Let us take in India, though we belong to a particular state of Telangana or Andhra Pradesh, but we claim that we all are Indians. So Indian citizenship governed by union government for some subjects and the state governments for the other subjects, local governments for the local issues. So the same citizen have to be governed for the various issues. That issues are also having different jurisdictions. For example, if you take like an issue of passport to a particular person in the nation, first of all, he needs to get the passport from the union government, as it comes under the purview of the Ministry of External Affairs. So the Ministry of External Affairs issues after getting clarification from the respective state that he is a resident of that particular state. So the union government has certain powers on issuing of the passports. In the same way, the state governments have to issue the respective ID cards. We can apply for driving license, we can get the Aadhaar cards or the other PAN cards. All these things are having certain divisions. Now in the same way, some subjects fall under the union, some subjects fall under the state list. So that differentiation of powers and the differentiation of the subjects which are dealt by the different structural government setups are known as jurisdiction or the purview of that one, where there is a clear cut division of the respective subjects. Any matter which is concerned with the national interest will be dealt by that particular union government. If it is concerned with the state interest, local concerns, that will be addressed by that particular state. Now, the third important feature is constitutionally this should be guaranteed. It cannot be a mutual concern of any 2 parties. It is like this. For example, any one party comes to power. Let us take a party X comes to power. The same way party Y comes to power in the state. If two different set of parties are ruling at two different levels and they don't have the mutual concern, mutual agreement, they don't have any constitutional validity, then obviously the union government would try to crush or derail the existing state governments because they are not valid legally. So that is the reason why constitutionally it has to be guaranteed. There should be constitutional validity for the existence of both the governments. That is one more basic feature for having the federal structure or the setup. Then we can now move on to the other important feature was, once the constitution has guaranteed certain rights, certain subjects under the jurisdiction of a particular state, a particular local government, a particular national government, then nobody, or especially the union government, cannot change the existing list of the subjects or the powers of the state governments without the consent of the parliament and more than half of the states, which means it is not an easy task to change the existing laws in regards to the union and the state relationships or the federal structure of India. So fundamental provisions cannot be changed unilaterally by the union government. It has to be changed with the consent of more than half number of the states. Let us take in India, we have total number of 29 states. So if any constitutional provision in regards to the federal structure has to be changed, it has to get at least 2/3 majority in both the houses of the parliament, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and it also needs to get the approval of more than 15 states. So it is not an easy thing to change any particular provision by the union government without the consent of the states. Then we also have the courts. As you all know, India has the setup of independent judiciary, and the apex court at the state level is High Court, while at the union level is the Supreme Court. So when we are discussing about the issues or any laws which are framed either by the state government or by the union government, and in case they are contrary to the interest of the people, persons, or against any individual, they can approach to the court and make an appeal to have a concern this of the public interest. So when the public interest litigations are filed, the courts, maybe the High Court, the respective state, or the Supreme Court at the union level, can interfere in the law matters of the governance, and sometimes they can also make them to be null or void. So in this way, we have the courts will have the power to interpret the laws which are framed either by the state governments or by the union governments. And then we also have the clear specification of source of revenue. For example, source of revenue for union government we have from the IT department, sales tax, whereas there is a division of the share which should be given for the state governments also. So the state subjects are collecting finances from the state regions incomes, whereas income tax department comes under the union list. So union government collects the income tax and allots its percentage of share to all the respective states as per the concerns of the state and the union governments. So the sources of revenues are also clearly specified for both the levels of the government, which means that this also gives a financial autonomy for the respective governments existing here. So this source of revenues are specified, are leading to the financial autonomy for the respective governments. So here the concern of the union government cannot block any kind of funds which are being released for the state governments. So obviously state governments are independent to take actions on the subjects which are coming under their purview, whereas the union governments cannot pressurize the respective state governments or cannot block any kind of financial resources which are allotted for the respective states through the sources of revenue. And the last but not the least, the main key feature of federalism has again dual role. Here dual objectives are present. First one is, the main feature is, though we have the division of power between the union and the particular states or more than level of the states like the union, local or the state governments, we have the concept of having the national unity together. There may be a division of power for the purpose of administration, for the purpose of legislature, for the purpose of judicial frequency, or for the convenience of delivering the actions or laws which are made by the union government to reach to the people. But in actual terms, the main concern was to have the national unity for them, and also the other major concern was, in the same way they should claim to be a nationally united people, but they also accommodate the regional diversity. So when there is a different diversity here, the one state cannot be mingled with the other state, as we have seen the two scenes or the two scenarios which happened in Belgium and in Sri Lanka. So in Belgium, they have used the concerns of national unity, but they have accommodated the different language spoken people with the equal recognition of their diversity, of their culture, their language, and then they have come up with the accommodate policy, while in Sri Lanka they did not have the concerns of regional diversity getting accommodated to it. So Sri Lanka can be claimed or clearly be declared that there is no federal setup structure in Sri Lanka, while there is a federal setup structure in Belgium. Now let us clearly have a quick summary of what are the key features of federalism. The key features of federalism are, it should have at least 2 or more levels of governments. This is the first key feature or the basic feature to have or to claim that this nation is following a federal structure. The second feature is, these two sets of governments are ruling or administering the same citizens, which means these two levels of governments should be in the same nation, not in two different nations. And the third one is, they also have the same citizens, but the different jurisdiction will also be clearly specific. The third point or the third important feature is, this division of powers between the states or the union government or the local governments has been clearly constitutionally guaranteed, while the fundamental provisions cannot be changed. The key provisions, the sharing of powers, the distribution of the funds, all these things cannot be unilaterally changed by the union government or any other government which comes to power. It has to take the consent of both the houses of the parliament with 2/3 majority, and they also need to take the consent of more than half number of states. Then only any provision in regards to the federal structure can be modified or changed. And the fifth important feature was, the courts will always have the power to interpret any kind of laws which are made either by the union government or by the state government. And the sixth feature is, the sources of revenue are clearly specified, which is giving for them to establish their financial autonomy. This financial autonomy also makes them to be independent and not an interdependent on each other. So the state government is not dependent on the union government. The union government cannot pressurize the state government in also the matters which are related to the financial autonomy. And then we also have the main objectives are dual in nature. One is to have the national unity, the other one is to have the accommodation of the regional diversity. Once we claim to be all an Indians, but at the same time we recognize the cultural diversity which is existing at every corner of India. That is the reason why in India we have 29 states, where all the states have their own setup of culture, diversity or state governments, while altogether we all are Indians. So it can truly accommodate that India is following federalism, or Indian structure is a truly federal structure. But in the constitution or in the wording of the constitution, anywhere we do not find the word called federalism, but we have a truly federal structure existing from the past 60 years, from the day when the constitution has been come into existence. Now, federalism. What are the basic requirements for having federalism, federal structure, federal setup? We have seen, then we have discussed how does India fall under the category of federalism. We have analyzed everything. Now, moving on to the actual working of federalism. Let us see how is federalism practiced in India. As we all know, first of all, the basic requirement to have the federal structure is the constitutional setup. There should be two levels of governments sharing the powers which are guaranteed by the constitution. Once after if it is done, then the just only constitutional backup can't bring the true federalism structure or spirit. So we need to understand clearly here that the constitutional setup is required, but the democratic nature existing in the country also plays a very vital role. So when we talk about the democratic nature, let us see how the democratic setup in India has survived, or how the federalism nature has been in existence in India. To be frank, we have never used the word called federal in the constitution, or in the making of the constitution, or in the draft constitution. But the features which describes to have a federal structure are all found in the Indian federal setup or Indian democratic setup. So now let us understand this on the issue based. Now when they started with the languages, in India we have different language spoken people. As per the consensus, we have nearly 1652 dialectics or languages found in India. The constitution has recognized many languages. So now let us find out how did India face troubles in order to make a particular language a national language, and how did the alternatives come up. What is the major problem for that? All these things we shall check it now. So as we discussed about the languages, initially the first major task which has come up for the Indian democratic setup was the establishment of states on the basis of languages. So there are different languages spoken by people at different corners of India. So when we discuss about the languages, we have recognized nearly 1652. So the initially when the Britishers handed over India, independent India, we have a different set of political map in 1947. So the political map is a map which gives us the detailed structure of the divisions of a nation divided for political purpose or for the administrative purpose. So when we discuss about the political map of India in 1947, the entire structure, the entire boundaries, everything were redrawn. The old existing states have been vanished from the map, and many new states have emerged outside on the basis of languages. That's why they are called as linguistic states. So when the languages states, the demand has come up. Initially the union government people had an opinion that if the regions of the states are being divided on the basis of languages, then that would lead for them to the disintegration of the nation. This fear was found in the forefathers as well as the main front runners of the union government during that period. That is the reason why they were little bit hesitant to divide the nations on the basis of language. But as per the demand of the people, there were various important revolutions started. People started to do agitations. People started to showcase their anger and start them to have a clear division on the basis of the language spoken people. For example, there was a state in South India known as Madras Presidency. In Madras Presidency, we have Tamil spoken people, Telugu spoken people, Kannada spoken people and Malayalam spoken people. So the entire four language people are living together. It was under the rule of the British, but as we got independence, initially they started to continue with the same political divisions, but later on the momentum started to get segregated from the Madras Presidency. The first people to raise their voice was the Telugu spoken people in 1956. The Telugu state was created, or the state of Andhra was created. So the Andhra state was created after the struggle of 1950 to 1953. The Andhra state was created, that is on 1st October 1953. The state of Andhra was created only on the basis of language, or the linguistic state. The first ever established linguistic state in India is Andhra state. Later, after 3 years, they merged Andhra with the Telangana present existing state together and formed the Andhra Pradesh state. This happened on 1st November 1956. The base for doing this unification of Andhra plus Telangana was also the same dialect, the Telugu spoken people. As the centuries passed on, as the time passed on, the people started to raise the voices. After the Telugu state, we have the establishment of the other states, the Kannada state, the Malayalam state. All these states gave rise, and totally today we have 29 states together in Indian Union. So this movement, which initially the forefathers or the makers or the union government runners felt that this would disintegrate the existing unity and integrity of Indian Union, but further it strengthened the unity and the integrity of the Indian Union. The disintegration concept has completely been wiped away, and this has given rise to the establishment of a strong Indian feeling of togetherness. Though they were divided into states, but they all are Indians divided into a number of states. It's not the only region, or it's not the only basis to divide the states in India. In order to acknowledge and accommodate the cultural diversity was also, they have created the states further in the year 2000, where the Nagaland, Mizoram and Jharkhand, Uttarakhand, these states were also being created to recognize the cultural and the importance of the particular existing society of people living there. Yes, these all people were divided on the basis of languages and on the cultural basis, but they all together are Indians. So from this we can understand that the actual federal structure lies in accommodating the diversity. Whenever there is any kind of diversified culture, we need to understand that every culture has its own specific importance and its own specific standards, its own specific customs, which makes them to be unique when compared to the other cultural people, other linguistic people, other religious people. So when we accommodate them, obviously they feel comfortable and they start to recognize themselves with the larger context of the nation. So India is divided into 29 states. Recently we have the bifurcation of Andhra Pradesh from Andhra and Telangana states. So this was again done because of some economic and social biological protests which were happened. So the social movement have reached to the peak stages where the bifurcation has been happened recently in the year 2014. So as the time passed on, the situations changed on, and we have now today 29 states plus 7 union territories. All are initially formed the language basis, but later on to accommodate the cultural diversity, and today India is a very strong union and we have the mutual respect between each other states, every other culture. So yes, Indians are divided on the basis of language, but they all are united on the name of the Indian nation. Now let us find out what happened, the other major task in the head of federalism structure of democratic nature to be proven to be a truly federal structure or setup in nature. So as we discussed earlier, there are so many languages spoken in India. So the language policy, first the creation of the states was done on the basis of the languages. Once the states are created on the basis of the languages, then we need to have a particular language to be recognized as a national language of India. So an earlier attempt to make a particular language to be an Indian national language, it was not so easy. It has to be crossed many hurdles. So the first stage was there are nearly 1652 dialectics languages present in India, spoken in India, found in India. There may be more than this number also. So in order to finalize a particular language, when the actual statistics were taken, nearly there are so many languages found in India, but initially they started to go with Hindi to be the national language of India. When they recognized Hindi to be the national language of India, India can be broadly categorized into two major divisions. One is North India, the other is South India. Hindi is either a mother tongue for most of the people in North India, or the second language, or either the third language for the larger section of people who are living in North India. So it means that most of the people in India, especially in northern part, have an exposure to the language of Hindi. So this either the first language spoken people, or like the mother tongue people, second language spoken people, or the third language spoken people, all together they accommodated nearly for 50% of the Indians know or have the knowledge of Hindi. But the other side of India, that is the southern states, especially from Tamil Nadu, Malayalam, the Karnataka, Kerala and the Andhra region, and some parts of Orissa and some parts of Maharashtra, are strongly against the decision of making Hindi a national language or an official language. The basic problem here is most of the people in these states don't know or don't have any exposure to the language of Hindi. So once they do not have any kind of exposure of this language to them, they could not do any kind of constitutional works unless and until they learn it, and they have to follow certain procedures which are written in this language. So it becomes like this particular section of people or this particular part of people of India have been completely neglected and thrown away, or their important decisions are not being considered while a particular decision has been taken on a whole for a nation. So there was a severe criticism, opposition expressed by the South Indian states headed by the Tamil Nadu. So initially the union government came up with a policy like to make Hindi as a national language. But when Hindi is opposed by the South Indian people, especially Tamilians, they raised their movements. They started the anti-Hindi movement under the leadership of DMK. So this became to be a center of focus for all the political parties in Tamil Nadu, as well as it spread on to all the South Indian states, that union government is trying to pressurize the decisions which are taken by them to be forcefully be implemented in the other corners of India. Later on, instead of behaving like the Sri Lankan government, where we have remembered, like the Sri Lankan government has taken that Sinhala would be the official language of Sri Lanka without accommodating the 18% of the Tamilians, or not giving any kind of importance for the Tamilians say there. So that have turned them into a civil war. So the Indian leaders did not move in such a way how the Sri Lankan government has done. They completely agreed, pacified and empathized the concerns of all the other language spoken people, and they also recognized Hindi and another 21 languages in the constitution through the 8th schedule. So today, along with Hindi, we have 21 languages, regional languages, recognized as a part and parcel of the official works done at various states through the constitution, through the 8th schedule. So in this way, India initially tried to have an official language, but with the concerns, with the issues, with the objections raised by the other peoples of the other states, the union government has accommodated them, recognized the cultural diversity, recognized the linguistic diversity, and accommodated all the languages, and recognized all the other languages which are possible, which are the spoken ability is there, and they made it to be an official language for that particular state. The official language of India is Hindi, but they also gave an alternative to the non-Indian, non-Hindu language spoken people to follow their own language. If not, they can also follow English as an official language for the next 15 years. That is from 1950 to 1965. So in this way, we can understand very clearly that yes, there was a union government which was very strong, which can implement by force or by any method, brutal methods. It can make the people to forcefully accept the decisions taken by the union government, but they never did like that. They have taken the decision, they have put it for the public concern, they have heard the voices of the anti-Hindu movements, they have observed the concerns, they have empathized them, they have solved the problem, and today there is no pressure or there is no diversification of non-recognition of the non-Hindi language people. So today we have nearly Hindi plus 21 languages which are scheduled or listed in the constitution through the 8th schedule, and English also is made as an official language where the non-Hindi people can also be comfortable and can also have the feeling that they also belong to the same nation, and the languages they feel difficult is not being forced on them or not being alleged to do compulsory by force or by friction. So this is very clear, the stand. This is another milestone which the Indian democratic structure has passed on by turning into a true federal structure. Let us find out what is the other major milestone which has brought a drastic changes in the Indian democratic setup. So the other major milestone which proves that India to be a truly federal structure is the center-state relations. When we talk about the center-state relations, we need to understand this very clearly. First of all, when the union government was there, we have union government at the center. The division of powers has been between state 1, state 2, state 3, state 4, state 5. So when the power has been divided between the union government and the state governments, initially from 1952 to 1967, there was a smooth functioning for the 15 years of the government existence. There was no disturbance at all, because the union government most of the times till 1967 was formed by Indian National Congress. So after getting continuously in power with a huge majority of votes and number of seats required to form a government, it has got to be forming the government continuously for 3 terms. Once after it has been done, the state governments were also, here we have Indian National Congress, again here we have Indian National Congress, Indian National Congress, Indian National Congress and Indian National Congress. In almost all the states, we also have the Congress governments running on. So when the union government and the state governments are obviously headed by the same party, instead of studying them to be the center and the state relations, it became to be a completely a party affair. Party started to decide what to be done, what not to be done in the issues of the states. Especially even the chief minister will also be selected from the candidates from Delhi, which has to be accepted by the members in the states. This kind of system continued. There was no kind of any tensions, or there is no kind of any issues popping up in the early phase of the constitutional setup or the forming of the government or up to the period of 1967. Once the states started to change into the other form of governments, the issues started to turn up. The issues started to question up. Initially, the states used to depend on the union governments to get the concerns or favors from the union governments. Though the divisions of powers between the union and the center are being clearly declared or stated in the constitution, but in the official structure or in the ground reality, these are not being practiced at any point of level. The unions used to have stronghold on the respective states wherever they have the same party in power. And we also have the other side, where when there is a non-favored party of the union is at the states, they used to brutally remove the power through the unconstitutional methods and make sure that their own party comes to power in that particular states also. So here comes the decision of the Supreme Court, which interpreted in the middle and clearly warned the union government and stated that no union government can at any point of time dismiss the legally constitutionally elected state government, though they may not be belonging to the same political party also. So these kind of steps have enforced the states and the unions to have a clear specifications of their rights and the authorities, the subjects. But till the 1967 phase, we don't have any disturbance of these kind of things occurring. But once the early periods of early 90s, we have the new governments coming up. That is, let us take in state 1 of AP, you got TDP, Telugu Desam Party, coming into power under the leadership of Nandamuri Taraka Ramarao, who was a famous film star. His film Charishma has completely waved off the Congress and brought a new personality and a new political figure in the in the state of Andhra Pradesh. We also have the same film star scenario in Tamil Nadu also, where in Tamil Nadu we have coming the DMK government with the Charishma of Annadurai, Karunanidhi and Jayalalitha. So like this, we have the second set of government non-Congress government coming in the other South Indian state. Then let us take here, if this is Tamil Nadu, then move on to here, state 3. Let us go to Kerala. In Kerala, we have CPI. So, this changing of the governments, of the state governments, started to raise their voices against the union's arbitrary rule, union's dictatorship attitude, strong union, weak state relationships. This have raised the issues further. And the 90s was not the phase which was in the phase of 60s or 50s, where initially Congress used to get huge number of seats in both the houses. So they used to run the government in a arbitrary manner or in a dictatorship manner with the full confidence, because any decisions, any laws can be passed in both the houses with a full majority. But as the time passed on, we have a new set of governments coming on, that is the coalition governments. Coalitions coming at the center. So coalition means a group of political parties forming together to run the government with a certain agreed principles. We have the phase of 90s to the 2014, the coalition governments coming into power in the union. So once the coalition powers are coming into power, which means that the respective states, which may be from Andhra, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala, from any state, they would have certain member of parliamentarians of the local regional party will be representing there in the coalition government. So instead of the earlier edition waiting for the approval of the union to pass on their concerns, now the local governments or the local national state governments started to pressurize the union governments to take certain decisions in the favor of that particular states. So these kind of things have changed entirely the state, from where the states used to wait for the approvals of the union governments to a stage where union used to make favors in order to hold the support of the particular party to continue in the power. So they used to pass on certain concerns and they used to approve the concerns immediately, which are being raised by the respective state governments, which are part and parcel of the coalition governments. So this kind of change could be possible only in a true federal democratic setup. It is very clearly evident from the examples which are being running out or taken out or studied clearly that we have a true structure of the federal nature in our country. And how did the actual decentralization of the power happen? That we shall find out now. Now, in order to understand the actual setup of Indian structure or the modifications which happened in the past 1990s was the decentralization of power in India. What is decentralization? Decentralization means the powers are shared from the union government to the state governments. Till now, we have discussed, we have understood, we have learned about the sharing, the relationships between the union and the states, the changing consequences, the coalition governments, coalition politics, regional parties playing a crucial role in the union governments. So all these things we have understood. But still, if there is a problem in a small village in Andhra Pradesh or in the state of Telangana, the leader who is in Delhi could not be aware of, or it would not be justified like the leader who is in Delhi should come and solve the issue here, which is happening in the village or in the town or in the local regions of the cities. So it would be appropriate, even we could not expect the state government of that particular state also could react fast and solve the issue, because the leaders who are above than that particular range or could not be accessible to that particular society of people, could not understand actually what is the problem there. So it would be better to have a government where it is having the knowledge and where the local people also be a part and parcel of that particular government. That is nothing but the sharing of decentralization of power from the states to the local bodies. As I told you just now, decentralization means the sharing of the powers from union government to the state government, and again resharing of the distribution of the power from the state government to the local government or local bodies is known as decentralization of power. In order to understand this clearly, what is the purpose of decentralizing the power? There are certain issues actually which has to be dealt at the union level. There are still again certain issues which have to be dealt at the state level, and there are still left out issues which are not at all been accommodated either at the state level or at the union level. But there are still many unsolved questions which have to be found out their answers. So to have a better solution, better understanding, better exact finding of the problem, the major step taken by the Indian government to have a local third level of government. In federalism, we actually define federalism that it is an agreement between any two or more levels of governments. So the first phase of two levels of government was present already in India, but still we need further clearance or further transparency in the existence of the policies of the government. At the same time, the issues of the people can also be answered very clearly if we have this kind of local governments also. So in the 1992, the union government has passed the 73rd and 74th amendments and brought the third level of government where you have a local body. Again in that local bodies also they have brought again 3-tier level governments, which means at the gram level you can have gram panchayat, at the mandal level you can have mandal parishad, at the district level you can have jilla parishad, above that you will have the particular constituencies, then in that after that we will have the member of parliamentarian constituencies. So all these levels of governments would not only bring the actual power from the center to the local level, but also accommodate more number of people to understand the actual working and the political nature of India. The local people also can understand what is the way of electing the leaders, how the leaders are elected, what are the basis for elections, when does the election happen, what are the time bound period to conduct elections, how the policies are assessed, how the policies are done, how the policies are actually framed, and how the policies can be modified. These all things can be dealt very effectively through the local self-government, and the structure of having the local self-government itself makes the people to get aware of the actual political nature or the democratic setup in India. So let us find out what are the provisions which are brought up with the acts or the amendments passed in the 73rd and the 74th amendments. So in 1992, when the 73rd and 74th amendments were actually made to give the 3-tier level setup in the states of India, the constitutional provisions or the modifications which were listed out, and the important modifications are, first thing is, it is a mandatory for the states to establish local government. So this provision or this amendment of 73rd and 74th in the urban areas and in the rural areas made the states to mandatorily make the local self-governments which are 3 tiers or of 4-tier levels. So the major 3-tier levels have been assumed for almost all the states except in Rajasthan. In Rajasthan, the first state to set up the government, but they had 4-tier level of existence. Next, the next major thing what was done was, in order to equate and to remove the inequalities in the society and to bring the upcoming society or the lower caste people to an equated level of the upper caste people, or to make the lower caste and the upper caste feel that they all are equal. The any issues of the lower caste people would be understood better for that particular caste people or community people. So having this broad idea in their mind, they have also reserved certain seats like for the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, backward caste, people to have certain share or certain number of seats are being reserved for them. So to ensure that this particular caste people of the scheduled caste, the scheduled tribe or the backward caste people also get the chance to have a share in the government, the local bodies, and they have a certain group of population representing them. So if any issues which have to be sorted out of belonging to that particular caste, they can approach to their leader, then the issues can be taken further. So any kind of injustice could not be done to them because they would have their own say in the framing of the laws or in any kind of issues because they have certain powers in their hands. And the third major provision which was brought was the 1/3 of the seats were reserved for women. For example, let us take for an example, if we have 90 seats in the local body, out of this 30 seats are reserved for women, which means women were made an active members to participate in the politics. So when the women enter into the politics, they also try to make certain rules and regulations which they follow clearly, and the families also could prosper, the particular village would prosper, the local body would prosper. Obviously, if all the local bodies are supporting to the states would prosper and develop. So all the states would develop, that would lead to the development of the nation. In this larger point of view, they made women also to be a part and parcel of the community as well as the third tier level of existing political structure. Initially, we don't have any such kind of reservations in the parliament elections or in the state legislative assembly elections, but these are made mandatory and compulsory for the local body elections which are happening from 1992 through the 73rd and the 74th amendments. But we all know that without giving power or without distributing power, without delivering power and without adding certain revenue of source for them, we could not expect that these are functioning successfully or effectively. So in order to ensure that one, the provision was also made to have a share of power by the state. The states compulsorily should divide the subjects and hand over certain subjects to the local bodies to frame, to execute the laws within their own purview and jurisdiction. And this also needs certain amount of money, so the state should also give the revenue source for that particular local body through its main source, so that the local body would not depend till the state government would grant certain amount for the execution of any policies or any frame policies or any issues to be sorted out. So it would not be waiting for the approval of the states through the financial resources. So the mandatory or the important steps which are framed in the 73rd and 74th amendments was: first, it's a mandatory to have a local self-government. Second, the reservation of the seats between the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe and the backward caste. We also have 1/3 of seats reserved for women, and then we have the distribution of share of power between the states and the resource of revenue from states to the local bodies. Power has to be delivered, decentralized, then financial resources are also have to be shared, which provides financial autonomy and also the political autonomy for the local bodies to execute them. So let us look at the framework of the actual setup of the 3-tier level or the 4-tier level. So the actual structuring or functioning of the 3rd tier levels. So let us take from the stage 1, stage 2 and stage 3. The stage 1 we have the local level of the government, which is at the gram level, or which is also be better called as village level of government. So when we talk about the village level of government, we are discussing about a group of people coming together, having the setup. So it is known as panchayat level. This is named as panchayat level or the gram level. So then when we move on to the second stage, so in the second stage we have a group of villages coming together known as panchayat samitis or mandal level. So here we have a group of villages coming together and forming the panchayat level or the mandal level. Then at the third stage, stage 3, we have district level or Jilla level. This district level, which also accommodates villages, mandals together in that particular village, called as district level. So when we discuss this structure, almost the same structure exists in the cities also or the towns, known as by the name municipal corporations, and the next level is municipalities. So this is at the rural, the urban division. So the union has divided through 73rd and 74th amendment, has to set up a 3-tier level of governments at the rural level as well as at the urban level. When we pass on from the rural level to the urban level, we will have a group of towns together known as municipalities, and municipalities we have municipal corporations. Now who will be the head of these parties or these regions? For panchayat, we have sarpanch will be the head. When we talk about the panchayat samitis, we have panchayat samiti president or panchayat sarpanch will be head of this one, or mandal parishad member will be the mandal parishad head will be there. When we talk about the district, we have Jilla Parishad president or sarpanch known as district officer. These are the political heads. When we talk about the municipalities, we will have the municipal leaders, and here we call them as the municipal chairperson will be the head of that particular municipality. When it comes to the municipal corporations, we have the head called as mayor. So these all are the political heads. So what would happen if we have a member of the legislative assembly or a member of parliament living in this particular district or in this particular mandal or in this particular town or in this particular city? Yes, when the body meetings are going on from the mandal level, district level, town level, municipality level or in the municipal corporation level, all the MLAs, all the MPs will be the ex officio members of all the board meetings which are headed from the panchayat level to the rural level, municipality level and to the municipal corporation level. So these all levels will accommodate all the people's representatives to give an effective work implementation, and this also can be reported to the state government if necessary, needs to get any approvals. They can pass any information via through the MLAs and the member of parliaments. So this kind of excellent setup will always proves that India is always having a true democratic setup in the federal structure nature. But let us move on to the actual factual questions. Does really all the levels in the local level or in the local tier levels, do they really have certain powers, certain sources of revenue for them? Still, it is a question mark. We have a long run to go. Many states have not even divided their share of powers to the local bodies or not granted any sources of revenues for them to execute and implement any actions necessary or taken to be by them freely without the concern of any particular state government or the union government. So still we have a long run to have an idealistic local level governments. or idealistic federal structure in nature. So in this unit we have discussed about what is federalism, how does the meaning of federalism originate, the Federalist word, the mutual agreements, the basic key requirements to have a federal nature, then how do we call or assume that India is following federalism, then we jump down to the issues which make India stronger and to have a truly democratic setup from the linguistic based states. Then we moved on to the language policy of Hindi and non-Hindi movements. Then we also studied and did the case study on the aspects of which are bringing changes in the truly nature of India, that is the decentralization power, the division of the subjects, the union sharing governments, the 73rd and 74th amendments, the third layer panchayati level. So these all gives us the summary, just only one point, that is India is truly a federal structure. Yes, in any part of the constitution you don't find the word of federal in the Indian constitution, but in actual practice Indian democratic setup is completely following the federal structure. Yes, there are voices saying India is following a strong union government and a weak state governments, but the situations have changed with the emergence of coalition politics. The present century, the coalition politics made the regional parties to act and to dictate the actions of the union government. So we cannot just conclude that we have a strong union government but the weak state governments. The state governments also started to play a major role in the union government, in the policy framing, execution of the policies. So India is truly having a federal structure in the true democratic setup.
If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel to get more videos on CBSE syllabus.